And isn't the best acting always about making us feel our common humanity beyond separate identities? A black George Washington in Hamilton, of course. But Ryan Gosling as Frederick Douglass? Yes, that would be problematic. Ditto Shia LaBeouf as Shaft. It's... Why don't we just go by merit and let the best actor win? Which seems like what happened when Ana de Armas just got picked to play Marilyn Monroe, even though she's Cuban with an accent. Hey, maybe she should play Fidel Castro. And
if you thought Bill Maher's war with woke Hollywood was over, think again. The last time he took aim at celebrity virtue signaling, it sent shockwaves through Tinseltown. Now he's back for round 2, and this time he's targeting casting directors. These are the gatekeepers who decide who rises and who quietly disappears. Maher's latest strike hit the industry where it hurts, exposing how diversity quotas have slowly replaced genuine talent with tokenism. The result? A Hollywood more focused on identity checkboxes than artistic excellence. Buckle up. This one's about to get explosive.
Directors have to stop listening to the casting police and go back to doing their job, which is picking the best actor for the role. Now, I mention this because a lot of people lately are either apologizing for or calling on others to apologize for playing roles they call appropriation. James Franco was just chosen to play Fidel Castro, and John Leguizamo posted, "No more appropriation. Boycott. This is up. I don't got a problem with Franco, but he ain't Latino." Okay, but John Leguizamo is Colombian American. He ain't a Venetian, but he played one.
And that's where the real issue lies with these self-appointed casting enforcers. When the system works in their favor, they call it progress. But the second it doesn't, suddenly it's discrimination. The hypocrisy couldn't be louder. Their outrage isn't about justice or artistic integrity, it's about self-preservation. Strip away the virtue signaling, and what's left is a scramble for money, fame, and relevance. They're not defending art, they're defending their own reflection in the spotlight. I can't help but wonder.
A French little person or an Italian plumber, but he played them too. Because he's an actor. Why the hell do you think people become actors? Because they want to spend their life not being who they are.
What was really going through John Leguizamo's mind when he made that post. After all, he's built a successful career in a system that celebrates the very freedom he's now condemning, the freedom to step into someone else's shoes, to tell stories beyond your own identity. That's the soul of acting, art without borders. It's not about matching ancestry, it's about empathy, imagination, and transformation. The true beauty of performance lies in becoming someone you're not. So when Leguizamo suddenly decides to draw boundaries around creativity, it doesn't feel like progress. It feels like hypocrisy masquerading as virtue.
Appropriating sounds like an unforgivable sin until you remember that's what acting is. That's why acting jobs are called roles. Sean Penn won an Oscar for playing gay civil rights martyr Harvey Milk. At the time, it was considered a courageous act of solidarity for a straight male movie star to play a homosexual. Now it's the opposite. Eddie Redmayne played a transgender woman in The Danish Girl, but now calls that a mistake because many people don't have a chair at the table. Well, actually, in movies now they do. And what does it have to do with you playing trans? Does it then work the other way? Can trans actors only play trans characters? Because that's not going to be a good deal for them.
And I couldn't agree more. Eddie Redmayne had nothing to apologize for. He was doing what every great actor strives to do, act. As one of the most gifted performers of his generation, his portrayal in The Danish Girl was nothing short of masterful. He brought compassion, nuance, and emotional honesty to a role that demanded courage and empathy. It was a performance that humanized and gave visibility to a marginalized experience. So where exactly was the offense? The outrage simply didn't make sense, but that's the hallmark of the perpetually woke. It's never about genuine progress or understanding. Even when someone honors their cause with sincerity, they'll still find something to condemn. Because it's no longer about art or inclusion. It's about policing, control, and chasing an unattainable illusion of moral purity.
Isn't the best acting always about making us feel our common humanity beyond separate identities? A black George Washington in Hamilton, of course. But Ryan Gosling as Frederick Douglass? Yes, that would be problematic. Why don't we just go by merit and let the best actor win? Which seems like what happened when Ana de Armas just got picked to play Marilyn Monroe, even though she's Cuban with an accent. Hey, maybe she should play Fidel Castro, and James Franco can play Marilyn Monroe, and then we can all stay in our lanes. Is that what diversity and inclusion look like now? Everybody's staying in their lane?
Exactly, that's the irony Maher is pointing out with razor-sharp wit. The whole beauty of acting is its ability to transcend identity, not be chained to it. When done right, great performances remind us of our shared humanity, that emotion, struggle, and spirit don't belong to one race, gender, or background. Nobody blinked when Hamilton cast Black and Latino actors as the founding fathers because it celebrated artistic vision over historical literalism. But suddenly, when the casting doesn't fit a particular political narrative, it's labeled problematic. Maher's sarcasm drives it home perfectly. If we keep obsessing over representation quotas, we'll end up in an absurd world where actors can only ever play themselves. Art will suffocate under self-imposed rules. The solution isn't identity micromanagement. It's simple, timeless merit. Let the best performer, regardless of their origin, bring the character to life. That's what acting is supposed to be.
Franco can play Marilyn Monroe, and then we can all stay in our lanes. Is that what diversity and inclusion look like now? Everybody's staying in their lane? Lawrence of Arabia was gay. Peter O'Toole wasn't. I can live with that. Because he was so cool, he almost made me gay. Emma Stone caught hell for playing a Hawaiian, Jake Gyllenhaal for playing a Persian, Gal Gadot for wanting to play Cleopatra, Johnny Depp for playing an Indian, even though he's not an actual Comanche, and spoiler alert, he also doesn't really have scissor hands.
Exactly. And that's the uncomfortable truth Maher refuses to tiptoe around it. Diversity was supposed to expand opportunity, not build new walls. Yet somewhere along the way, inclusion started looking a lot like segregation with better branding. When the outrage only flows one way, like applauding some boundary-crossing performances while condemning others, it stops being about justice and starts being about control. Maher's point cuts through the noise. You can't claim to champion equality while enforcing selective outrage. Either art is free or it's not. True inclusion means every actor, regardless of race or background, has the same right to compete for any role on merit. Because once you start deciding who's allowed to portray what, you're not protecting culture, you're policing creativity. And that's the exact opposite of what art is meant to be.
Tom Hanks now says that if Philadelphia were made today, he wouldn't do it because the character was gay and he's not. Well, besides the fact that this would force all gay actors to reveal their sexuality, even if they didn't want to, great actors, which Tom is one, try hard to keep their private lives private so we don't think of their real lives when we see them in a movie that attempts to transport us into a different world. Could you really look at this actress now and not think of the trial? Should she only play bedwetters now?
People need to let art breathe again, free from the constant grip of ideological policing. When creators are allowed to create without fear, art naturally does what it's meant to: challenge, inspire, and reflect the full depth of human experience. Its purpose is to spark imagination, not to meet diversity quotas or tick identity boxes. The moment we start deciding who can or can't play a role based on race, gender, or background, we strip art of its heartbeat, its freedom to explore beyond boundaries. And let's be honest, Hollywood isn't just a moral platform, it's a business. Studios invest millions into productions, and they should have the right to cast whoever can bring the story to life, deliver excellence, and make that investment worthwhile. Because audiences don't go to the theater for political sermons or #activism. They go for stories that move them, characters that feel real, and performances that remind us what it means to be human. That's what true art has always been about. Not politics, but passion.
Daniel Day-Lewis really like? I haven't a clue, which is why he's so great. Because when he plays Lincoln, I only see Lincoln. I don't think, well, there's a British heterosexual. But Hanks says, I don't think people would accept the inauthenticity of a straight guy playing a gay guy because, quote, we're beyond that now. Don't get him started on bosom buddies. Does Forrest Gump get thrown under the bus too because Tom isn't really mentally challenged? And as far as we're beyond that, no, that implies progress. This is the opposite. This is regression.
The woke crowd isn't just choking creativity by insisting that only actors with matching identities play certain roles, though. They're robbing audiences of the magic that makes storytelling timeless. Acting has always been about transformation, the art of stepping outside yourself to embody another life, another truth. But when every casting choice gets run through a political checklist that spark disappears, instead of immersing themselves in the story, viewers are forced to think about whether an actor qualifies for the role. What we're left with are performances that feel safe, calculated, and stripped of soul, built to satisfy outrage, not evoke emotion. Cinema stops being a window into humanity and starts feeling like a lecture on ideology. And that's the tragedy. What was once a celebration of imagination and empathy has been reduced to another battlefield in the endless culture war. The result isn't progress, it's the slow death of storytelling itself.
Frankly, typical of so much wokeness that doesn't build on liberalism. It undoes it. Empathy, putting yourself in someone else's place so you can understand them better, used to be the very heart of liberalism. Now it's considered offensive because don't even try to put yourself in my shoes because you could never know. What a bunch of bull that always was. Of course, no one can ever know exactly what another person's struggle is, but we try.
Maher hits the nail on the head. This isn't progress, it's regression masquerading as virtue. Instead of bringing people together through a shared love of art and talent, identity-based casting only drives division. For generations, acting has been about empathy, stepping into someone else's life, experiencing their world, no matter how different from your own. But now, the woke gatekeepers want to shrink that creative space, insisting that only actors who perfectly match a character's traits can take on a role. Maher skewers this logic with his signature sarcasm. If that were the rule, only mentally ill actors could portray characters with mental illness. It's absurd and dangerous. By turning creativity into a moral purity contest, we're not advancing diversity, we're quietly dismantling it, all in the name of righteousness.
Black Like Me was a 1950s book about a white man who darkened his skin and went out into society because he wanted to understand what his black brothers and sisters were up against. Today, all the woke mob would see about that was a guy who did blackface. Steven Spielberg recently remade West Side Story and bent over backwards to respect ethnicities and ended up pleasing nobody. And it's too bad because the original musical was created by Stephen Sondheim, Arthur Lawrence, and Leonard Bernstein, three gay Jews.
Empathy was never meant to be owned by any ideology. It wasn't exclusive to liberals nor foreign to conservatives. Once it was universal, the simple human ability to step into someone else's shoes, to feel their struggles even without having lived them yourself. That's what used to bridge divides, whether political, ideological, or personal. Now, that shared virtue is under attack. The far left insists that you can't truly understand someone's pain unless you've experienced it firsthand. That mindset doesn't preserve empathy, it destroys it. It confines people to their own experiences, replacing compassion with suspicion. And when we stop trying to understand one another, we lose the very humanity that art, culture, and community rely on.
I think you're going to tell me street gangs don't even dance. And now they're making a movie about Leonard Bernstein, and Bradley Cooper is playing it. I mean, if he can get through the picket lines. You see, like Rachel Brosnahan playing Mrs. Maisel and Helen Mirren playing Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir. Bradley is, sadly, a Gentile. And that's the new sin in Hollywood, being a non-Jewish actor portraying a Jew. Because that's always been the problem in Hollywood, not enough Jews.
And that's the tragedy of it all. The woke mob can never be satisfied. They're relentless, unforgiving, and wildly inconsistent. Their outrage has no off switch, their standards are impossible, and any sense of proportion long gone. They demand apologies, and when they get them, those apologies are twisted into confessions of guilt. Even legends like Steven Spielberg, a filmmaker who's inspired generations and often championed progressive causes, haven't been spared. He's gone back and re-edited classics to appease them, yet they still find new reasons to be offended. The irony is brutal. The harder you try to please them, the more they consume you. They don't cultivate culture, they police it. And with expectations so impossible to meet, they end up devouring their own, leaving Hollywood mired in self-censorship and fear. Actors should be free to explore their craft, to push boundaries and transform themselves without the looming shadow of ideological gatekeepers. The essence of acting lies in stepping beyond your own identity to inhabit someone else's story. That freedom to experiment, to stretch beyond comfort zones, is what makes performances unforgettable. Hollywood already faces real problems: systemic racism, pay inequality, exploitative contracts, and studio politics that stifle creativity. The last thing it needs is another layer of moral policing deciding who can or cannot play a role. Casting should be about talent, not social approval. When creativity is held hostage by fear, everyone loses. Actors, audiences, and the art itself. Maher is right. Hollywood has lost the plot. The same industry that once celebrated imagination now bows to ideological purity tests that smother originality. Art isn't about checking diversity boxes or appeasing online mobs. It's about emotion, empathy, and truth. When actors hesitate and producers cast from obligation instead of inspiration, authenticity dies, and so does the magic of cinema. True diversity starts by protecting artistic freedom, the very force that made Hollywood shine. Because once you censor art, you don't just harm movies, you erase the shared human experience that gives them meaning. And that wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed it, hit like and subscribe for more content like this.